They say college is where you find yourself, but what if all you find is something you were never meant to see? 4 different campuses, 4 horrifying experiences, and one narrator who somehow made it through them all. These are my college horror stories, and they're all true. Story 1, The Roommate. It was the first day of college, and I'd just moved into my dorm at Brookside University. Everything was in place. My family had just left, and the quiet was settling in, too. Quiet. A few hours later, the door opened. My new roommate walked in. The moment I saw him, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. He was tall, lanky, pale, and not in a sickly way, more like lifeless. He didn't smile, he didn't say hi, he just stood there, blinking at the room. I stood up and said, "Hey man, I'm Julian," offering a handshake. He looked at my hand like it was an alien object. Then he let out this awkward laugh, mumbled something I couldn't catch, and finally shook my hand, barely. It was like grabbing a damp sponge. "You got a name?" I asked. He looked confused. "Oh, yeah, Marcus." I tried to start a conversation. Just basic stuff. What his major was, if he knew anyone on campus. All I got were one-word answers and the occasional creepy smile that didn't reach his eyes. Within 10 minutes, we were both on our beds with laptops open, the silence louder than ever. That night, I couldn't sleep. He stayed up until 3 a.m., clacking away on his keyboard. When he finally shut his laptop, I dozed off, only to wake up an hour later to something even worse. The blinds had been opened, moonlight poured into the room, and Marcus was sitting on the edge of his bed, staring straight at me. I blinked, sat up slowly. "Dude, what are you doing?" he whispered. "Sorry," and laid down like nothing happened. The next morning, he was gone. It was the first time I saw his bed empty. Later, during orientation, I was walking with my tour group through the gardens when I overheard someone whisper, "Yo, what is that guy doing?" I looked, and my blood went cold. Marcus was crouched behind a bush, rubbing the bark of a tree with both hands like he was trying to pet it. The other students just stared. I quietly told 2 people next to me that he was my roommate. They both winced. One of them actually said, "Dude, I'm sorry." We laughed about it awkwardly, and I ended up making friends with them. 2 guys named Brandon and Seth. We made plans to hang out that night. When I got back to my dorm, I had an email from housing. My request to change roommates had gone through. I'd be switching rooms tomorrow. Relieved, I went out to meet Brandon and Seth, but when I came back, Marcus was sitting at the desk, facing the door. "Hey," I said. He responded instantly, "Nothing." I sat on my bed, opened my laptop, and my stomach dropped. All of my emails were marked as read. Some of my private files had been opened. I checked my folders, my downloads. Someone had been snooping. I looked at Marcus. "Did you go through my laptop?" he snapped. "No." Way too fast. I didn't say anything more. I was leaving in the morning. It wasn't worth it. As I grabbed my pajamas, I noticed something else. My drawers were different. The clothes weren't how I folded them. Everything had been moved. That night, around 2:30 a.m., I woke up to the sound of a zipper. I turned on my lamp and saw Marcus on the floor, digging through my bag. "What are you doing?" I asked. He looked up like he was surprised I was awake. "I think you took my toothbrush," he said. I stared at him. He backed off and went to bed. I didn't sleep. The next morning, I moved into my new room. My new roommate, Devin, was a little antisocial, but compared to Marcus, he was a godsend. Sunday night, we both went to bed early, and around 2 a.m., I woke up again. Click, click, click. It was coming from the door. I got up and looked through. The peephole, there was someone standing there, head bowed, face hidden, but the clicking, it was the doorknob being turned slowly, over and over. I called campus police. They showed up in under 5 minutes, and when they got to our floor and I opened the door, Marcus was standing there, in handcuffs. They let him away while I explained everything. The snooping, the staring, The attempted break-in. He never came back. I don't know if he was suspended or expelled, but I still think about him. Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night, and I swear I hear a doorknob turning. After Marcus, I thought nothing could shake me again. But fear isn't always found in people. Sometimes it's found in the middle of the woods, with no one else around to hear you scream. Story 2. The lake fire, a year after the Marcus incident, I transferred to a new university for a fresh start. Grayfield State, new friends, new dorm, new everything. By October, I had a good crew, me, Eli, and Cameron. We weren't in frats, we weren't athletes. Just regular guys who liked to drink, talk trash, and avoid any situation that screamed group project. One Friday night, the rest of our friends bailed on a party, so we decided to hit up a hidden spot we'd found earlier in the semester, and a little lakeside clearing way off campus, deep in the school's nature preserve. It was far, too far for anyone to find by accident. We brought beer, a speaker, and a lighter for a small fire. The night started off perfect. Just 3 friends around the flames, talking about everything and nothing. As the drinks kicked in, we started cracking up at stupid stories. At one point, Eli laughed so hard he rolled into the leaves, arms flailing. Then Cameron went dead silent. "Shh," he said suddenly. I froze. The fire popped, casting shadows, and we all listened. Crunch, leaves, snap, a branch, footsteps. We all heard. It. Someone was walking through the woods nearby. We looked at each other. Eli whispered, "That better not be campus security." We immediately threw the rest of our beers into the lake and shoved the bottles into our bag. If campus police caught us drinking out here, we were screwed. But as we listened harder, it didn't sound like a patrol. It was too slow, deliberate, almost. Careful, the fire made us visible from every angle. But the thing is, this place was off-grid. We never saw anyone out here before, ever, so who the hell was circling us? The footsteps kept moving, not toward us, around us. Cameron said, "It's just some stoner screwing with us." But no one moved, no one called out, and then, thud. A branch the size of a baseball bat landed in the middle of our fire, killing the flame instantly. We jumped up. Eli shouted, "What the f—" I scanned the trees. Nothing, just blackness. Another crack echoed to our right. Then another, behind us. Whatever it wasn't just standing still anymore. I yanked the bag off the ground. "We need to go. Now!" Then, whack! Something struck Eli in the shoulder. He stumbled back, clutching his arm. "Dude!" It hit me. It wasn't a rock. It was another branch, thrown, hard. We didn't wait. We ran. Through the trees, tripping on roots, the bag bouncing on my back. The road was a 10-minute hike, uphill, and the entire time. We could hear something following us. Branches breaking, leaves crunching. It wasn't running. It wasn't screaming. It just followed. Quiet. Calculated. When we reached the road, we stopped to catch our breath. Cameron bent over, gasping. That's when Eli pointed. Back there. At the edge of the woods, half hidden behind the trees, a figure was watching us, pacing, back and forth, waiting. Every time a car drove past, the figure would step back into the shadows, then return, pacing again. We ran the rest of the way to our dorm. Slamming the door shut behind us felt like finally coming up for air. Eli's arm had a red welt. Not deep, but enough to prove it wasn't a hallucination. We huddled in Cameron's room, beer in hand, trying to laugh it off. And we did, for about 10 minutes, until the adrenaline wore off. And we realized how close we were to something we couldn't explain, something that didn't want to be seen, but wanted us to know it was there. We never went back to the lake. I still think about how quiet the woods were that night. Except for the footsteps. The woods were the last place I expected to feel watched. But sometimes danger doesn't hide in the trees. Sometimes it hands you a drink and waits for the moment you can't stand up anymore. Story 3. The Party. My third college was Langdon University. I'd transferred again. Long story. But my new roommate, Zayden, was all about Greek life. He was obsessed with rushing a fraternity. And not just any frat. He had this whole ranked list of the top-tier houses and even a backup plan in case he didn't get in. During syllabus week, he convinced me to go out with him to a party on Thursday night. His warm-up round, he called it. I agreed, mostly. To be a good sport, what he didn't mention was that this frat was unofficial. As in, not even recognized by the school. He found it through some Reddit thread and said it was a hidden gem. The second we pulled up, I knew we'd made a mistake. The house was way off campus, tucked in a sketchy part of the city. It looked like it should have been condemned. Peeling paint, broken fence, garbage bags stacked by the door. But the music was blasting and cars lined the curb. We knocked. A short, stocky guy in a stained tank top opened the door holding a solo cup and grinning like he hadn't blinked in days. "Get in here," he said. We walked into a living room packed with 50-plus sweaty guys. No AC, barely any lights, and the kind of smell that sinks into your clothes. There were maybe 2 girls in the whole place, and they looked like they were either way too drunk or trying to find the exit. Zayden made a beeline to chat up some frat brothers. I drifted toward the kitchen, grabbed a beer from a half-crushed cooler, and leaned against the wall. The people here were weird. Guys standing silently, staring at nothing. Others laughing too loud at things that weren't funny. Everyone felt off. I gave the place 20 minutes before I motioned to Zayden that I was ready to dip. But there were 5 dudes standing around the front door like a wall. So I figured I'd wait a little longer and avoid the awkward early bail look. I grabbed another beer. That's when this big guy with slick hair and dead eyes walked up. To me. He handed me a tiny bottle, unlabeled, and said, "This'll knock your brain sideways." I forced a chuckle, said thanks, and expected him to walk away. He didn't. He just stood there, watching. So I opened the bottle. 2 shots, maybe. I downed it. He smiled, and then started asking questions. Where I lived, what dorm, what I was studying. Every time I tried to walk away, he shifted to block me, gently but intentionally, and then the room started to tilt. Everything got fuzzy, sound slowed down, the lights dimmed. The last thing I remember clearly is reaching for the wall. Then, nothing. I woke up in a room I'd never seen before, dark, still. The music was still playing, muffled, behind a closed door. Was on a mattress, my shoes were off, but my clothes were still on. My head was spinning. I looked around. There was a desk, a tiny lamp, a closet. The closet door was almost closed. I stood up slowly, and that's when I heard it. Crunch. The unmistakable sound of a plastic bag being stepped on from inside the closet. I froze. Then I heard it again. Someone, or something, was inside that closet. I didn't wait to find out what. I stumbled toward the door, threw it open, and sprinted down the stairs. The party was still going, just as loud and chaotic as before. I found Zayden, grabbed his arm, and said, "We're leaving, now." He looked confused, then saw my face and didn't ask questions. We pushed past the guys by the door and got to the car. Halfway back to campus, I told him everything, that I blacked out, that I woke up alone in a room, that someone was in the closet. Zayden nearly pulled over. "Dude, we need to call the cops." I shook my head. "They won't do anything. It was probably a setup, but nothing happened. I'm okay." And that was true. I felt fine. No pain, nothing missing. But still, that closet. The next day I checked the clock. I'd been out for only 10 minutes. Whatever they gave me didn't work the way they intended. And I'm lucky it didn't. I never found out the name of that frat. I never found that house again. It felt like it only existed for that one night. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't woken up when I did, or if I had opened that closet. After that night, I thought the worst was behind me. But evil doesn't always hide in frat houses or forests. Sometimes it knocks on your door again and again and again. Story 4. The Door Knocker. The time I hit my sophomore year, I was done with roommates. I requested a single dorm at the end of a quiet hallway on the third floor of Willow Ridge Hall, the oldest building on campus. It had history. You could smell it in the air. Old pipes, old wood, old everything. But I didn't care. It was private. I could study, sleep, and breathe without someone weird snoring 6 feet away. For the first few weeks, everything was chill. I still hung out with people on my floor, but when I needed solitude, I had it. Then one night, around 11 p.m., I heard something. Tap. I looked up from my desk. Tap, tap, soft, almost polite. Someone was knocking on my door. "Come in," I called. Nothing. Got up, opened the door, and found no one there. I stepped into the hallway, glanced both directions. Empty. I figured it was someone messing around. Whatever. I went back inside. But the next night, it happened again. This time, it was louder. Knock, knock, knock. I called out again. No answer. I opened the door. Nothing. But this time, I ran to the corner of my hallway and looked both ways. Still nothing. It was weird, but not scary. Not yet. The third night, it changed. I'd been asleep for a few hours when I was jolted awake. Boom, boom, boom. Not a knock. A full-on pounding. I froze. My heart was racing. It was 3:12 a.m. I crept to the door, looked through the peephole. No one. I unlocked the door and stepped out into the hallway, barefoot, barely breathing. Just as I turned the corner at the end of my isolated hallway, I saw someone, a figure, just the back of them, disappearing behind the opposite corner at the far end. I ran after them, the adrenaline cutting through my fear. I turned the corner and caught a glimpse of a door. Closing slowly, not a dorm room, the communal bathroom. I approached quietly. The door creaked open just an inch. The lights were off. I pushed it open all the way and flicked the switch. The room lit up, empty. 2 sinks, 2 stall doors, both closed. I was done playing games. I dropped to my knees and looked under the stalls. 2 black boots, heavy, worn, military style, just standing there. I stood, took a breath, and kicked the stall door open. And what I saw, I still can't explain. The boots were there, standing upright, but no one was wearing them. The stall was empty. And then I heard it. Laughter, low, raspy. Not a giggle, not human. It sounded like something trying to remember what laughing felt like. I backed out of the stall. Every nerve in my body was on fire. I turned off the lights and ran back to my room like my life depended on it. Slammed the door, locked every bolt. I didn't sleep. The knocking came again at 4 a.m. This time, I didn't move. I didn't open the door. I just sat there listening. After 30 seconds, it stopped. The next day, I asked around. No one else had heard anything. Everyone swore they weren't messing with me. And I believed them. They weren't scared. I was, because I knew what I saw, and worse, what I heard. That laugh. Even now, sometimes when the building settles or a pipe creaks, I swear I hear it again. And every time it happens, I wonder, was it ever a prank, or was it something that just picked me? And if it did, why? Some things you can explain. A weird roommate, a sketchy party, a prank gone too far, but some things stay with you, like footsteps in the woods, or a knock at the door when no one's supposed to be there. If any of these stories made your skin crawl or reminded you of something you've experienced, drop me a line below this video. I read every single one. And if you want more stories like these, don't forget to follow. You haven't heard the worst yet?